Hey kinfolk, welcome to Making a Plastidip Shield, macro detailing. So in this episode is all about getting those big details. So what I'm doing here is getting a center line to draw the individual planks from. So this line is actually where the handle is on the other side, and I want planks going the about 90 degrees from that ankle. And so I'm measuring about 5 3/8 from each side there. So each plank is about 5 3/8 thick. And I want to make sure you're using this builder square to make sure I get a nice straight 90-degree angle from that. And again, measure from those two lines to get the center plank line done. And of course, I put a yardstick to make sure I get the other side to make sure that line is nice and straight. And this is a nice little ruler I got from Harbor Freight, and it's nice and flexible, so I can just bend it over that boss. And this is a pizza cutter that I sharpened up just for this particular application. I'm trying to put grooves in for the planking, and that works wonderfully. It's nice subtle detail, and if you use a knife you tend to drag it along the foam and it kind of tears. And I'm just doing it on the other side here. And again, making sure the planks are 90 degrees from the planks from the other side. So they're kind of going in opposite or perpendicular directions. And so this is some 1/8 inch MC skin that I got that that's long enough to work for the next application here. I use a nice long stick like that because it's straight, and it gives me a nice straight edge where I need it to go. And this is, I'm cutting this at the width of the shield, and the reason why I'm doing this is going to be like an iron band around the edge, and I want to make sure it's nice and well, long enough to cover it, because that's a long distance. And again, I'm using this stick to make sure it's nice and straight, so it's not, you know, in an S curve or whatever. Using masking tape, I'm masking it to the table, so when I start putting glue on it, it doesn't, you know, get stuck to the brush or the table or anything like that. It keeps it nice and steady. So 2 on each end and 2 in the middle. Now this box is great for keeping your shield up off the table. So if you want to put a boss down, you can do that. Using isopropyl alcohol, I am using that to clean up the shield. You want to do that anytime you want to add glue or Plastidip or paint on anything, to make sure there's no dirt or anything on there for the glue to attach to. Also, make sure you use a fan and rubber gloves to protect yourself from these nasty chemicals. Nice silicone brush to help you with applying this. This silicone spatula is great for applying glue because the glue will peel right up off of that spatula, and I can reuse it over and over again. But that acid brush there works better. And this is an older one that I've used a couple of times, and once you dip it in the glue, it'll just reactivate and you'll be okay. Make sure you do 2 layers, 2 coats of this stuff, and make sure you get both pieces, because otherwise it's not going to work. Now be very steady when you're applying this band. You want to make sure that it's on there all nice and even Steven. And just getting it attached, you don't have to really press hard on it until the whole thing's on there. Now I went to a certain point and I wanted to cut off a certain bit. Now I didn't have a piece long enough to go all the way around, and I don't think you can. I don't think you can actually get a piece that's that long. Then I'm going to paint some glue at the very top part on both sides, so that way I can overlap it, and it'll look like the iron bands are kind of riveted together. And again, you want to wait about 5, 10, 15 minutes for the glue to get nice and tacky. When you touch it, you don't want any glue coming up, but you want it to be a little sticky. So when you're done, you want to apply pressure. You want to make sure that glue sticks. So about 50, 60 pounds is pretty good. If you have a J-roller, that would work just as good, but that's a kind of an expensive tool that you don't really need. Now the inside of the boss. The reason why I put foam on that is that your hand's going to be rubbing up against the inside of that hole, and I've had blisters and kind of rubbed my hand raw. So that's a good way to protect your hand. Again, same principle. You want to cut it and you want to overlap it just a little bit. And you want to glue it again right there. Wait for it to dry and stick it on there. And again, apply pressure after everything's kind of set in place. Now is the time for getting the rivets done and drawing out all your details that where you want them. So you want rivets on the boss, and you want rivets on the shield for where the handle's going, and you want to carve out where the wood grain's going. And again, using my box knife, I'm just kind of getting a hole, or not so much a hole, just a slice in there. And using a heat gun there, you want to open up the pores a bit, and that kind of gets those grooves nice and deep for you. Now for deeper grooves like this, you want to carve in opposite directions, just like I'm going here. So you want to kind of carve in a V shape, and it's not going to be pretty, but you can dress it up with this. Using a heat gun, you can kind of heat it up and then use your finger to smooth it out. You can use this stuff to cover any kind of details and smooth it out even more. This is brand new to me, and I kind of like it. It's nice. It's a nice gap filler, and it only cost me like $10 for a little quart thing of it. Hot glue gun. This is how I'm doing my rivets. Now your game may vary, but I use these on my shields because, well, I'm not really hitting somebody as fast or as hard as a sword. I wouldn't recommend using this method on a striking surface, but on a shield I think they're perfect. The reason why is because it sticks and it kind of melts into the glue, and it works really well. So when I'm applying my Plastidip, it doesn't come up, and I've had little foam bits do that all the time. And the best thing is, if you don't like it, you just peel it right back up, do it again. It also just beads up just right, and it just looks just like a rivet, just a hand-forged rivet. So when you're doing the top, you have to let it sit there for at least 60 seconds and let it cool off before you move it. And don't touch it like I'm doing right there. It's a dumb move, because then I have to redo it. Well, got all that stuff put in, and this is the stage where you just get all your macro details. You get your deep grooves, you get your rivets, you got your your metal band around the edge there. So yeah, that's in this little thing here. This helps protect your hand. But yeah, these are all the big details that you can't really do with a paint job, and so we have to put these in before we put our Plastidip down, because you can't really do this after the fact. And so yeah, we're gonna let this sit for at least a day. 7 days, a lot of people would recommend, but I think a day is fine. And then we'll just throw on some Plastidip. So that's going to be a next episode. And hey, if you guys really enjoyed this episode, then consider hitting that like button, subscribe, and all that good, and share. All that good stuff. If you want to support me more in a financial way, then consider buying me a coffee on my Ko-Fi. Those coffees really go a long way. They gives me energy and motivation to keep on making these videos. It helps support the channel. Like, I can buy materials for little builds like this. I can go to events, pays for gas, pays for event fees, and all of that stuff. So I can report back to you guys and keep promoting the hobby and showing you the stuff that you guys want to see. If you want to support me more in the long term, then consider being a part of my Patreon. My Patreon has all sorts of cool benefits, like early access to videos and a general discount to my Etsy shop. Which brings me to my next one, my Etsy shop. My Etsy shop has all sorts of cool stuff. I've got wooden mugs, I've got cutting boards, I've got chairs, I got some cool stuff. And I'm running out of stock because people are buying it, and it's definitely my most popular by far. So go on, head on over there and just buy something, or just favorite it. Do whatever you can. Now, if you can't afford any of that stuff, totally understandable in this quarantine, COVID-19, everybody's out of work or whatever. What you can do is, like I said, like, sub, and share. that goes a long way to help support the channel, broaden my audience, and get more eyes and ears on what I'm doing. And that ultimately really helps. I really appreciate anything that you guys are all doing to help promote my channel, and you guys are out there. I see you, and I thank you for it. So that's basically it for this episode. I'm going to send you home with a be humble, be helpful, and be honorable. Thanks for watching.